Brian, are we okay to start the meeting? All systems go? Okay, thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is public open time.
Vice Chair McAvoy, would you like to let people know how much time they have?
Yeah, there's 2 minutes for your public comment.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Stephen Bingham from San Rafael. And I will only briefly make a couple of comments. You just heard that we're only allowed 2 minutes. And I would request, and I know many of my colleagues and friends who appear agree with me, that you change that, as you have the authority to do, to 3 minutes. Obviously, if there's an issue where there's lots and lots of people in the room, you always have the opportunity to go back to 3 minutes, to 2 minutes. So that's number one. And number two, well, I just want to congratulate you and thank you all for doing this. This is incredibly important, and it's going on all over the state. And one way to be regularly informed is to check out the website of NACOL, the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Sheriff's Offices, which has helped set this up. And there are several in the state. And also there is I don't have the exact website, but there is a collective of Bay Area oversight groups, either in place or in formation, and they have interesting information. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good morning. My name is Bobby Mosky. I'm on several boards and committees of the county. In the last 3 years, I've done 3 site visits at the jail. And we've made recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, as we were charged to do. And on each occasion, we've had several interactions with Sheriff Jamie's deputies, and also before him, Robert Doyle. And I'm here today to talk about something that is very important to me. When somebody goes into the jail and they have to go into the safety room, let's say they've had one too many, and they're anxious and they're upset and they're perceived as being a behavioral health problem or issue there. They're put in the safety room. I don't know if you're familiar with the safety room, but the safety room is a room that has a padded cell. We've made recommendations that they put in music, they give people reading material, so forth and so on. But the most egregious thing is that they strip these people naked. These are not all derelicts and alcoholics, they're professional people. They strip them naked, they put them in this cell to give them a flimsy sheet, and most degrading of all, there's a grate in the floor. And they have to urinate and defecate in that grate in front of all of the booking agents. This is right out of the 50s. They say it's for safety reasons. I'm beseeching you to get Sheriff Jamie to put in a padded commode. That's the least we can do in the year 2025. It's obscene what they're put through. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mosky. Is there anybody else for public comment?
Good evening. I know there's a lot to work through here. moving forward. Lots of moving parts, but as we move forward, we'll get work plans, we'll have data, we'll get data, and the chances are you will be pushed to move forward with RIPA data. RIPA data is important. We also have data from the DA's office. I'll keep reminding you, from the DA's office, going back 30 years, that shows the pattern, that shows what has happened in Marin City, what we went through, many of us as youngins, and still the patterns persist. The patterns are there. So as you get RIPA data, I urge one of you, someone on this commission, to simply email, call, go to the DA's office, and get the data for yourself. Attach it to the RIPA data that shows the long history, the patterns, the pattern, the discrepancies, the harassment. And many of you, many people, when they're online, not face to face, they're online, and a lot of white folks, oh, why, we support the cops, and why are they so angry, or what's the issue? Some of you are, in general, not you per se, maybe some of you are clueless to what has happened in Marin City. This data will show you. And today, I'll end with this. Today, many white folk are driving around with fancy cars. I saw one of you with a Rivian or one of that. I won't say who. I wonder if you have a license plate on that car. One of you do. I saw you driving it. But driving around with no license plate, and even fancy bike racks. Okay, I'm done. Fancy bike racks with a bike covering the license plate if you have one, and covering all your lights. White folk can get away with that. We can't.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other comments?
Hi, Peter Getz from San Rafael. This is my first time at this meeting. I think it's just the second meeting. Is that correct? I'm interested in the commission and what it's doing, so I came to sort of see what's going on. I was intending to bring your attention to the SCAP and then the report in the IJ, but I saw that it's on the agenda, and I saw there's actually an addendum that you all put out there. Can I assume that we discussed at the meeting, and if that's discussed during this meeting, I'll happy to put off my comments? Otherwise, I just wanted to draw your very careful attention to that SCAP report. And I understand there's some controversy, but I totally agree with the Marin IJ that the SCAP report, starting with the name, the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, is very unfortunate that Marin County continues to follow that while other counties are not. So anyway, I just wanted to draw your attention to that. And do y'all answer questions at this time? No, it's just comment, right? So I just hope it comes up on the agenda. I appreciate you putting this out. I appreciate you copying the editorial from the IJ, which is a very strong and very important report. Thank you for considering it. I believe that we in Marin County are not content with our sheriff continuing to collaborate with ICE. Shouldn't happen here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Salam alaikum, San Rafael. I'm an active member on the San Rafael Oversight Committee, known as the PAC. I prefer to call it the San Rafael Police Oversight Committee. And I would like to say that I would like to reach out to each of you. I will give each of you my contact information, as I will be giving you information as for ways to strengthen and to grow professionally as you're going through this first year of basic learning. I want to reach out to you and be able to communicate with you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else for public comment? Ms. Walsh, do we have anybody on Zoom?
Madam President, there is one speaker in the queue on Zoom. The first speaker is Eva. Please unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hi. Yeah, just a couple things. I did want to point out that So far, this is the third meeting, and while this is the first one that's been available via Zoom, this commission has already outperformed the Civilian Oversight Working Group meetings, because those meetings were not even open to the public, whether they were, and they were recorded, but the recordings were deliberately deleted, which is what we learned through CPRA. I was able to get 4 of the available 12 meeting recordings, and those show how utterly incompetent the working group was, but also how much money was wasted on NACOL, which you're still going to hear from working group members that you need to support NACOL. I do want to point out some of the controversy about the sheriff working with ICE. ICE's budget, it has increased 700 times. Its spending has increased, 700%. It's now up at 71.5 million since January 20. So a lot of this discussion about whether the sheriff cooperates with ICE is really kind of not to the point. ICE will do what it wants to do. And things like civilian oversight are, so toothless that it can only be seen as a distraction designed to fail. And we've seen that for years already with civilian oversight. It's failed in Oakland. It's failed in Los Angeles. It's failed in New York. It's failed everywhere else. And somehow Marin County is, according to your new chair, going to be better and going to do things differently. I would like to point out that is fantasy thinking. But hopefully there is some kind of change. It is not going to be coming from a toothless civilian oversight working group that doesn't even have the name sheriff in it.
Thank you for your
Thank-
comment, Ava.
Madam President, there are no more speakers in the queue.
All right, thank you. I would just like to note real quick, while it's not on the agenda and we're not,
I do have hi, Felicia Gaston. I just received a text from someone who said when they went to the county website, they're getting this error notice. So I'm not sure if that's happening with other people and why there's only one person on Zoom.
It's because of the AWS outage that happened today. All of the Zoom links that we had put out earlier don't work anymore. So we've updated the website with a brand new link. So
Okay.
if they go to the Civilian Oversight Commission link, our website, it's on the county website, and they could go to the meeting agenda link, and the Zoom link is provided there.
Okay.
And we apologize, but I think this was a worldwide event that happened today, and we pivoted as quickly as we could.
Okay.
should we allow for time because of that Zoom link issue for people to come in if they want to have public comment?
If you don't mind.
Yes.
Oh,
Is it
here we
okay?
go. Go ahead.
Thank you. Mark Dale, and I'd actually gone to the other location of the last meeting, so I had to get my tail over here, so I apologize. What I'd like to talk about, it kind of hit me at the last meeting, and plus the College Marin campus policing and public safety advisory meetings. Oftentimes we lose focus that folks who are in law enforcement at all levels, from support staff to sworn officers, are human beings just like us. They're moms, dads, they have kids oftentimes, and when they're asked to put that uniform on, they're asked to be more than perfect. And I get it. It's what you signed up for in the job. But there was a point at College Marin where there was so much attacking going on to the officers, I brought up a mental health component. I said, guys, you know what? There's ways to do this without going after individuals necessarily. And I've said many times that I like really good law enforcement and good policing. If there's bad policing going on, you got to deal with it. And that's what this Oversight Commission really is about, is that complaints that come in from the community, if somebody's been mistreated, mishandled, whatever it may be, that's hopefully what this commission will be able to address and resolve. But I just wanted to throw it out there. Public health, mental health, public safety, they kind of go hand in hand. And so I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that we remember that the folks who get in uniform, they signed up for it, but at the same time, they may have some difficult things in their life going on. And I'm also heavily involved with suicide dynamics in our county. And when you look at law enforcement suicides, it's a pretty heavy toll. So finally, I'd like to close with, if you haven't looked at this website yet, it's called frsn.org. It was started here in Marin County, oddly enough, and it went statewide, nationwide. It's First Responders Support Network.org. And it's meant not only for the first responder, but to help their family. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Deal.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason Saris. I have been getting some calls from Benford Road where the sheriff's patrol that area. There's people in an established camp out there in RVs that are, I'm getting a lot of calls that people are getting over policed. Their belongings are getting, usually they have them stored, but some people have had some stuff thrown away. And so, you know, the sheriffs actually put up the cleanup notices. And so I think they're tied into it a little bit, but I'm getting a lot of calls as a homeless advocate that people are getting over police there. So I just want to put that on your radar. I don't know when your complaint process is going to be set up, but as soon as it is, that's something that I just want you to all take note of and keep it in your periphery. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saris.
Good evening, Commissioners. Heidi Merchant. This room is way better, so I hope we get to stay here because we were all smushed in the room last month. I wanted to respond a little bit to what Mark Dale was saying and assure you all that the working group really set out to figure out how do we have both community members be able to humanize law enforcement and law enforcement be able to humanize community members, because we know from both perspectives it can get hard. And we don't want either group to see the other group as others. We want, you know, I believe in general, people sign up to be in law enforcement because they care about the community and they want to help. But they can't do that without the community saying what help looks like. And sometimes what they think is helpful, community doesn't like. And so that's why you all are here, not just to handle complaints, but also to bring community voice that's why you're spread out across the districts, to talk to your neighbors and find out what's working, what's not working, how do we make it better. So I am excited that it took a really long time to get here. And I'm excited for you all to work in partnership with the sheriff's office to figure out what community safety looks like in our community, because people have different ideas about what makes them feel safe and what makes them feel unsafe, and we should all work together to define that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else for public comment? Do we have anybody in the Zoom?
There are no speakers in the queue.
All right. Well, thank you all for your comments this evening, and I will close public comment. I would like to say that although it's not on the agenda, and we're not going to discuss it in depth tonight, the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program is definitely within the scope of this commission to take a look at. We're still new. This is only our third meeting, and we haven't established the foundation of the commission yet. And it's important for the commission to establish its foundation so that we can address things that come up in depth consistently throughout the commission's terms. So with that said, I will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of the meeting minutes from September 15th meeting. I will invite Deputy County Executive Walsh to introduce this item.
Thank you, Vice Chair McAvoy. So you have before you for this agenda item the draft minutes from September 15th. And the recommendation tonight is to approve the minutes, but with a modification. So we have reserved this room for the next 3 months, according to the dates that were on this calendar. And I found that December 8th, this room is booked by another group. And so I wanted to suggest that the commission look at their calendars and see if there's another date close to December 8th that would work. The rest of the nights that week are open, so I might suggest Tuesday, the 9th, Wednesday, the 10th, or the 11th. And happy to take any questions on this, Vice Chair McAvoy.
Are there any questions from the commission? I'll start with on my right. Commissioner Chan.
That's 3 days.
Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval.
It's hard to press. Yes, all 3 days work for me too. Thank you.
Okay.
Those 3 dates work for me.
Commissioner Mackin.
They also work for me.
Tuesday the 9th works for me.
Okay, I think the consensus is that Tuesday, the 9th.
Before we move on to that level of discussion, we'd like to take public comment.
Okay.
There were no questions for staff, though. Okay, then let's go to public comment.
All right, let's go to public comment then. Does anybody from the public have any comments on this item? Are there any comments in the Zoom?
As a reminder, please use the raise hand function if you'd like to provide public comment. The first speaker is Eva. Please unmute.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out that I did have my hand raised and I was forced to raise it a second time. I hope you guys coordinate a little bit better. About the minutes, it looks like there are some elements missing overall from the minutes. And I just want to point something out. I worked extremely hard to get any sort of transparency on what was happening with the civilian working group and the conflicts of interest. So when at the inaugural meeting of this commission, Heidi Merchant, who was on the working group, finally acknowledged that she was married to the assistant sheriff of Sonoma County who ran that deadly jail, that was actually important information that should have been included somewhere in the minutes. And I want to point out, I am the only person with a recording of those first 2 meetings because the county chose not to make a recording. And even though the former working group members were present, none of them bothered to bring a video camera or audio equipment. But it is really important to acknowledge, that was just one of the many conflicts of interest with the inaugural working group. And it is important to have that as part of the record. I would appreciate if Ms. Merchant would actually reiterate her statement and this time make it clear that it's not that her husband, was former law enforcement when she was on this working group, but that for the entire time she was on the working group, he was the assistant sheriff. She had been a Marin County and Sonoma County sheriff and never disclosed that. And that sort of lack of disclosure was repeated over and over and over again with the working group.
Your time is almost up.
Yeah. And so that needs to be in the record. I would appreciate that being, part of the record. And
thank you for your public comment.
Madam President, there are no more speakers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. So then,
It has to do with point of order. You asked for comments on the current minutes and statements that were on or left off of the previous meeting. When someone is giving comment and deviating from that, you need to say point of order and stop it because those comments were not part of last month's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Public comment is now closed. We will move on to the commission's discussion of this item. And I think we are all in agreement that December 9th would work for all of us.
I move approval of the meeting minute.
All right. Does he have to say it into the microphone?
I, um,
I second that.
why don't we just say it into the microphone just one more time?
It's
Just-
not going on.
It's on. When you see the red light, you have to kind of turn to the side.
Here it is.
It's tricky.
Okay.
Yeah, could you please, Commissioner McInerney?
Yeah, I move approval of the meeting minutes and that we set and move that we set our next the December meeting to December 9th.
Right, and then I also second both motions, approval of the minutes and the movement of the next meeting to December 9th.
All right, the motion carries, and we will move on to the, oh. All right, let's take a vote on that motion. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? All right, so that motion carries. And now we will move on to the next item on the agenda, where we will have an update from the Inspector General Hiring Subcommittee from Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval.
Thank you. Do you want me to start, Lynn, or do you want to start?
You can go ahead and introduce the item and then hand it off to Human Resources Director Christina Kramer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the IG hiring subcommittee met twice since our last commission meeting. We talked with the external recruiter from Bob Murray and Associates about the recruitment process and got a little bit more information. We will be meeting again later this week, I believe, where we will get hopefully a draft of the flyer that they're expecting for the IG recruitment. And then tonight, I think we're going to get a more detailed timeline from Christina Kramer with the HR department. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I will hand it off to Christina Kramer.
See, even we have hard times with these buttons on these microphones. We do have a presentation that I think will be loading up.
And you can go forward to item number, what is this?
4.
Item number 4, please. There we go.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you. So thank you, Commission, and thank you for the introduction. I'm Christina Kramer, the county's Human Resources Director. With me is Diane Ohms, who's our recruitment manager. And we are the team that will be coordinating and executing this recruitment on behalf of the Commission to hire the Inspector General. So I just wanted to start out by saying that we are treating this recruitment with very high priority, and we are administering it in the same way that we would handle a department head recruitment, in which we are using an external recruitment firm, and we will have a very thorough interview process that I'll kind of get into. Don't want to give away everything, but I do want to make the point that this is a very high priority. There's the commission subcommittee that your commission established, and we do have our most senior level folks, including myself, very involved in this recruitment. Just wanted to also remind the commission that the ordinance provides that there is some guidance regarding the commission role, and that basically the job description that we established some time ago is the baseline from which we will be recruiting from. And I believe that job description was in your packets for you to review. The process is a lot of preparation. We've had the subcommittee meetings. We are preparing what the job announcement will say. We are developing the timeline. We'll begin sort of booking things out appropriately as soon as this recruitment process is finally determined and approved. There is something called, so there's a long lead time for preparation, and then we have the actual outreach period. The outreach period is when advertisements go live and people start to see the recruitment and they have time to submit their materials. Usually this outreach period and timeline is approximately 4 to 5 weeks, which is what we're currently planning. I believe it's a 5-week window for people to see it, consider it, apply for it. Then there will be a series of interviews. What happens after applicants submit their materials is the recruiter, his name, by the way, is Gary Phillips. Gary Phillips with Bob Murray and Associates has done many of these recruitments. I have personally worked with him. This will be my 4th recruitment of this nature, and I know that he has done very similar recruitments for other jurisdictions, so he is very familiar with this body of work, going back for at least 10 years now, when this body of work really started to become a thing in counties. The interview process will include a series, sorry, let me back up. Once that filing period closes, he's going to be sort of doing pre-screen interviews with the candidates who appear to be most qualified based on the qualifications and candidate competencies that we put in the job announcement. And he will be presenting those candidates to our county executive, Derek Johnson. Derek is technically the appointing authority, and Derek will be making a determination of who to move forward in the interview process. And that interviews, typically you'll see anywhere from 6 to 8 candidates move forward to what we call the first round panel interview. That first round interview process will include basically 2 concurrent panels. A panel is a number such as yourselves, not the commission itself, but anywhere between 5 to 10 is probably the maximum. Panel members who participate in the interview process. They are able to give feedback at the end of that interview day to Derek Johnson on their thoughts and considerations that for Derek for the county executive to move forward to the final next round of interviews. There will be we're anticipating 2 concurrent panel interviews to happen. One panel will consist of what we call external stakeholders. We anticipate that a couple of commissioners could be on that interview panel, as well as other external stakeholders who have knowledge and interest in this hiring. We will get a list of folks who would be appropriate, and we will personally invite them to participate in this day of interviews. And then the other concurrent panel generally tends to look more like some department heads, people who are in this work themselves, what we call subject matter experts. Somebody such as, for example, the ILARO director from Sonoma County who has been in this work, somebody from Berkeley, San Francisco, Sacramento, potentially other cities and jurisdictions who have oversight bodies and an equivalent inspector general or some sort of a director of that sort of oversight. So we will have a couple of those panel members as well. So that is the whole panel. And again, like I said, they'll be able to give feedback at the end of the day on the candidates that they've met to the county executive, who will make a determination of who to move forward in the interview process. Once he conducts his own interviews, that candidate pool is typically narrowed down to only the most 1 or 2 candidates who are the most qualified. And then we will be doing what's called a background process. The way we've structured this position is that it will have a very thorough law enforcement-like background. We anticipate hiring a third party who specializes in law enforcement backgrounds. We will not have internal staff conducting this background, and the report will come to the county executive, who will determine successful completion of that background process. I want to note that that background takes quite a bit of time, and it is one of the primary factors in why this hiring timeline is even longer than a typical department head recruitment. It takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks on average to complete that background process. And then once a candidate is deemed as passing that background, then they will be receiving an official offer, and then a start date will be determined in their availability, how much notice they may have to give. All of those are factored into the lead time for them to actually physically start the position. So that is the overview of the interview process. So the timing of that, we've been planning September and October. We anticipate opening the recruitment in early November, and it will be open through essentially early December. We then kind of go into a period where the recruiter, as I mentioned, would be pre-screening candidates and then making presentation to who to move forward to that interview process. So given the timing of when the filing period would close, we wouldn't be starting interviews before essentially the holiday period. And we would anticipate starting those panel interviews, as I just described, in early to mid January. And then our county executive typically interviews people in fairly short order. We try to put a tight amount of time between the panel interviews and when they move forward to interview with the county executive. And then we would be conducting that background process that I just described. So all told, after you anticipate some of those timelines, which could potentially move, they could get shorter, they could get longer, we anticipate somebody starting, an inspector general starting in mid to late March. The commission involvement, the ordinance does set up the structure for commission involvement. And so I just wanted to point out where those points are, where we have had the subcommittee meeting, where we have had a discussion of the recruitment timeline and that process. They'll be part of reviewing the job announcement before it gets finalized. And they are actually having a personal meeting with the recruiter to talk a little bit more in depth about their ideals around the position and the individual. And then in the interview process, as I mentioned, there will be some commissioner representatives during that interview process in which you'll be able to provide feedback to the county executive. And that concludes an overview of what that process would look like.
Thank you, Director Kramer. Are there any questions from the commission for staff? I will start to my right. Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval.
Yes, I have a question in regards to the panel interviews for that will take place in early January. How does that outreach work, especially when you're talking about community stakeholders, like who selects and those stakeholders and and how does that outreach work to make sure it's very diverse?
Yes, diverse as far as representation on the interview process, or stakeholder community interest. Yeah,
stakeholders like
Yeah.
representation, especially like from Marin City, the canal, and West
Right.
Marin. Is
For
just
example,
not-
Canal Alliance has come up as an obvious, probably individual. Usually we try to have like an executive director of an organization such as that. So that definitely is on our list. There are other entities that we'll be talking to Lynn about. We can get feedback from the subcommittee on, as well as anybody else who might have a sense of who might be a very good organization. Generally, we want a nexus to the work of the commission and the work of the Inspector General's office, who would be a good community representative.
But I definitely would like to have some representation from a leader in Marin City, whether it's a ministerial alliance or
Sure.
or a local leader. And it could just basically even be someone who represents that area, but also I'm talking about West Marin too,
Yes.
but definitely Marin City.
Heard and already anticipated, and as you point out, West Marin and the canal area too.
And then you have to say Novato, I guess all the districts that we represent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But who selects them? I mean, who does that outreach? You or?
We'll compile a list and we'll sort of narrow it down. And with Lynn and Derek's review and discussion, we personally call them, and Diane helps a lot in inviting them to the process. And like I said, we don't want panels to get much larger than about 10 folks at the most. Otherwise, it gets a little bit unruly.
Okay. Any more questions? Commissioner Lee?
Yeah, will those panel members, once they're selected, will be communicated back to the commission so we can share with the public who's involved?
We generally don't necessarily make our panels public to the community because of, we usually try to keep that fairly private. We tell candidates who they'll be meeting with once they're sort of established, but generally we don't do public disclosure of panel members. We can, report back to the subcommittee.
That might be nice, just so, again, just to, put some accountability on making sure we have a well-represented process.
I think through the subcommittee and, Derek, who is the appointing authority, will make sure that we do get appropriate representation.
Commissioner McInerney?
Yeah, thank you for your report. And it does sound like there'll be plenty of opportunity for providing input leading up through the process. I guess one thing I wanted to confirm is I understand under the ordinance that established this position, the actual decision on who the Inspector General is will be made by the county executive. Is that right?
That is correct. He's the appointing individual.
And will the county executive report, will we learn what the reason, like why he selected who he ends up selecting? Will that be explained to this commission at all, or will it be a black box?
Well, I think that in the introduction and the decision, I don't want to speak for him. I think this is a good question to actually, for him to consider. It is not typical for the individual to come back and justify the individual who has been selected. As I said, the panel member, of which we anticipate at least 2 commissioners being part of, will give feedback to the county executive. You will give feedback with a broad group. So both panels will be together. Well, I can't guarantee that. Both panels, each respective panel will hear their feedback to the county executive. And that is all taken into consideration on who to move forward in the process. I would imagine that our county executive would be willing to share the announcement and, the background and the history and the qualifications of the individual. And I think since they are the appointing authority who hires department heads and very high-level individuals, that they have a lot of experience in appointing very well-qualified people.
Yeah, and fair enough. And I understand maybe some of the hesitancy to get too far out is we're dealing with personnel issues, or you're discussing personnel issues, and we don't want to suggest, and I'm not suggesting that I expect the county executive to disclose private personnel information. I've served on a number of panels and made decisions or been involved in decisions on staff members, public staff members. And I think it's pretty standard that when somebody is selected, there's at least to the body, like if it's a council or the board of supervisors are hiring somebody, they learn from the decision maker why somebody was selected. And all I'm suggesting is maybe if you can, I'm just speaking for myself, maybe you share with the county executive that I think it would be important to understand and to help instill confidence in the Inspector General that a robust explanation as to the decision that went into it would be helpful, I think, to instill confidence in the decision as opposed to providing no input or description. You're correct that I think when we can provide input at various stages if we sit on the panel, but it seems to me, but maybe I want to hear your response to this maybe, is that's different than the actual decision, and we're not the decision makers on that. So I would hope that there would be an opportunity, at least for us to learn and for the public to understand why somebody was selected. And again, you can do that in a way that doesn't then draw contrasts and undermine other applicants or anything like that, where you get into, disclosing confidential personnel information. That's my only point. So,
Thank you. Feedback noted.
Yeah.
We will deliver that.
thank you.
Commissioner Oldham Robinette, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So if we have suggestions for groups or board, who would be good for the selection process to work through our subcommittee, talk to them.
Yes, or email Lynn Walsh directly
Okay.
too. That would work.
Thanks.
And Lynn will make sure that we get that information.
All right, thank you. You have another question?
Did you have a question?
No, go ahead.
I actually have one question. How is it expected for the sheriff's office to be involved in the recruitment process, or the deputies union? How should we see them involved?
I believe that you will have at least one representative on one of the panels from the sheriff's office.
Thank you. My only question is, as far as the public disclosure of the stakeholders, is there a reason why it can't be shared who had a hand in this process in the interview panels?
We like to keep a recruitment process confidential to maintain the integrity of the recruitment, and sort of that process is better left confidential.
Just for the sake of transparency, can it be disclosed?
We can
to the
disclose
public?
it afterwards would be, if that would be acceptable to the commission. I think it would be, if the commission wants more transparency, I would recommend disclosing the panel members afterwards.
Okay.
I think to maintain the integrity, we try to, not disclose panel members where there can be conversations, there can
Right.
be, if they want to talk about the job, any one of us, Lynn, Human Resources, the county executive, if candidates have questions, or the recruiter, we usually, those would be appropriate folks to ask questions of, or the commission. We just have to, not violate Brown Act, but I do want to maintain the integrity of the panel members, and I would be happy to disclose the panel afterwards.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And now I will open it up for public comment on this agenda item.
Hello again, everyone. I second the transparency piece and really encourage you all to think about that while executive directors may be community members who live in our county, a lot of times there are people in different positions in that organization who work closer with residents, who might be better subject matter experts. And also just thinking about when you identify if the community is going to be defined as nonprofits, then which organizations work most closely with people who have the most contact with the sheriff's office? So who's working with people who are formerly incarcerated and or also have a lot of experience working with the sheriff's office, because those are the people who are our community experts about what's working and what could be better if changed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment on this item?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Green talked about is, if there's maybe not an organization per se, but there's a community member, somebody who's very, very well entrenched with the community. I don't see why it would have to be an organization that was on the panel. I would want to see the strongest person in each community, each district that would best suit as a person on the panel. And so I just want to reinforce that I think that doesn't necessarily have to be an organization. It just needs to be the best person for that job at that time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah, a little more of the same. I appreciate all the work you're doing, and I appreciate all the input that will go into deciding who will be on that panel. Regarding transparency, I'm reading tonight in the background, the commission's purpose is to initiate, build, and maintain a trusting relationship between members of the public and the Marin County Sheriff's Office through transparent, respectful, just, and accountable oversight. The more transparency, the better. We all out here, obviously, we're interested in how the process, how the sausage is made, how the process goes. This IG will be very important regarding the public relationship with the sheriff. And there are different parts to that relationship. And we want to make sure that all the parts are heard and that we all know how the people were chosen. And obviously, it's not just going to be the chief executive sitting down with a friend and hiring them. And we want to be reassured of that. Thank you.
I appreciate your comment.
And Steve Bingham again. I just want to second Jason's comment about individuals not necessarily being connected with organizations. And even further, I think that you should insist that there be at least one person with what we call lived experience, who has in fact experienced law enforcement interaction because of something they've done. I think it brings a breadth to whatever that interview panel is. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
It's interesting that Ms. Kramer wants to maintain the integrity of this panel, naming the Canal Alliance. The Canal Alliance gets millions of dollars from the county. So their integrity is not intact if you bring them on this panel from the get-go, from the start. They get millions of dollars from the county of Marin. So as they said, previous speaker said, there's no reason to bring in these department heads, nonprofit heads. They want to because they're partners. It's plain and simple. They have relationships with them. This is, county business, how they do it. Probably all counties. All things county and Marin, over and over again, conflicts. So that's the integrity that we're talking about. It's out the window there. Being around plenty of panels and being around them in some, it's not mandatory that it remains private. That's the county's choosing that path to make it private. If you advocate to not have it private, it doesn't have to be private. That's a choice. It's not mandatory. We all want it. I think you all would want to know, and you will know, and we want to know, and you should advocate on our behalf that we know. We get information. That's a choice. It's the county of Marin, how they do things. Privacy, secrecy, backdoor deals, relationships, conflict of interest. It's the county of Marin. That's what they're known for. They're the most inequitable county in California on all fronts is the county of Marin. Because no one ever asked them questions. No one says, why county you doing this? And we know hardly ever any lawsuits because they pay people off.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment? Is there anybody in the Zoom for public comment?
We currently have 3 speakers in the queue. The first speaker is Eva. Please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I just want to point out there's a real continuity here between the working group and this commission and the process for hiring the inspector general. Where do I start? It's the continuity is just a total lack of transparency and a real focus on being willfully anti-democratic. So you have a bunch of well-meaning liberals walk up here with all the hope and faith in the world, telling you we have a lot of faith in you, and it's very, very important who you hire as the inspector general. I want to point out it's actually not important who you hire as the inspector general because civilian oversight has failed everywhere it's been implemented. The reason for that is that these things are designed to fail. They're designed to fail. They're designed to distract from the responsibilities of the prosecutors and the board of supervisors, the prosecutor and the purse string, to rein in any excesses in the sheriff. Now, if you look at what ICE has just spent its money on, including apparently ballistic missiles, chemical, basically CS gas, a lot of body armor, 71.5 million in less than a year, additional weapons. This whole thing is a distraction, but it's also, reinforcing an anti-democratic system because we didn't get to vote for who was on the working group. We didn't get any transparency from the working group. In fact, you just had Heidi Merchant stand up there and still refuse to say on record that she had those serious conflicts of interest because of her
Someone
connections
stop
to law
Ava.
enforcement. And so it's important that you get this right when you move forward.
Thank you
And
for your
having
comment.
another
The next speaker is Chris Jewell. Please unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, no, obviously my reading of this Inspector General position is that it's a very important position in the sense that he or she seems to have a lot of power as to whether or not to refer, for example, to refer complaints about the Sheriff's Department to the Commission. And so we definitely do not want the Inspector General to be biased in favor of the Sheriff's Department. I know the candidate is supposed to be completely independent. However, in the real world, that's not how things happen. I would rather he or she be biased in favor of the Commission and the people generally. And also, I did notice a second point is that I noticed that the description of in section 2A of the agenda, the example brochure that the recruitment agency provides, the Sonoma County did actually have a requirement that the candidate not have any immediate family members defined as spouse, child, sibling, or parent who currently hold sworn law enforcement positions. I didn't see such a clause in the 2B of the attachments for the Marin County position. And I would also encourage transparency, like the other people have said. If anything, the commission should be deciding or have the final say as to the candidate, the final candidate or for the position of Inspector General, given how important this position is. He has to be accountable to the people more than the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you for your comment.
The next speaker is Carol Kelly Thomas. Please unmute.
Okay, hello, good evening. I'm just coming in kind of hot on this topic, but definitely having had lived experience. I've lived in Marin County all my life. I am 64 years old and have witnessed a lot of things happening, particularly with the Sheriff's Department in and around the Marin City community at large. Just even so when we're talking about transparency, I'm really concerned about the fact that maybe community may not have say so or some type of information about the candidates that are, applying, because we do need to make sure that whomever is going to hold that position is not biased again, but also that they have a in-depth understanding about our community, people of color, cultural sense. I'm really concerned about that because I have a son, even for people who have mental illness and things like that. I just recently had an experience where there were 7 officers handling a person who is known throughout the county with mental illness, and there was no crisis call. And for the Marin City community, we have, things put in place, systems in place to support the Marin County Sheriff's Department, and they still forego the things that they can be doing that assist them. So I've worked on the oversight committees before in years past, have been targeted because of my work. So I kind of took a step back, but having a son who is not the person I'm talking about, who has mental illnesses, it's a problem. And, there's just really, we need to have a sensitivity to homelessness, all of the populations and the people that we have in our community that will be, handled by particularly Marin County Sheriff's Department and their
Thank
inability
you
to
for your
follow through.
comment, Ms. Thomas.
Madam President, there are no more additional speakers in the queue.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment on this item? All right, well, thank you. Public comment is now closed, and we will move to the commission to discuss this item. I will start on my left side. Commissioner Oldham Robinet. Robinet, sorry. Commissioner McInerney.
I would just like to encourage my fellow commissioners, we are meeting again, the subcommittee, later this week. If you guys have recommendations, please reach out to us in the next couple of days. We already started discussing groups to reach out to at our last meeting, but I think we'd like to have a more in-depth discussion. So we'd really appreciate that feedback from you guys in the next few days. And I think even from the public, you can send outreach to Lynn. Am I right? Okay, yes. You can send outreach to Lynn about either people or community groups that you think we should involve. We would really appreciate that feedback.
And Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval, if we could just ask if commissioners have comments to send them to me so that we don't have a violation of the Brown Act, and then I will forward them to the subcommittee.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Just to piggyback on what Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval said, in the subcommittee, I think we discussed that we definitely wanted the input on the commission for who we should recommend to be a part of the interview panels. So please send your information or send any suggestions to Ms. Walsh. The recommendation for this is to accept and receive the presentation that we have had today. Do I have a motion for that? To receive the presentation.
Sorry, we don't need a motion, so we can just receive the report and move on.
All right, well then we will receive the report and we will move on to the next item on the agenda. Actually, before we move on, I'm going to take a 5-minute recess in case anybody wants to use the restrooms or stretch their legs, and then we will reconvene.
Reconvene at 7:10?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll reconvene at 7:10.
Thank you. Vice Chair, I'll just check to make sure our team, our broadcast team is ready. The broadcast team, are you ready? Thumbs up from the broadcast team. You can start when you're ready.
All right, we are back from our recess and we are going to move on to agenda item number 5, which is the consideration of the development of the commission work plan. Our next, the recommendation is to conduct a high-level review and discussion today, and staff will use our discussion to develop a draft for the commission work plan for considering at the November meeting. I will invite staff to present their report. Ms. Walsh?
Thank you, Vice Chair. If I could please have the presentation that starts with agenda item 5, please. Okay. Thank you. This item is a continuation from our last month's agenda. We did a very quick high-level review, which I'll go over very briefly just to refresh your memory tonight. And then the idea is to discuss designing the commission work plan. And the big picture of why this is recommended is that a work plan will provide your commission a clear framework on how to approach your responsibilities, how to prioritize your key tasks, and how to organize your efforts. Next slide, please. And as Chair McAvoy said, the recommendation is to engage in a high-level review tonight. And after that discussion, I will prepare a draft work plan, which I will make sure to send to our chair and vice chair for review and refinement to make sure it fully represents the conversation that we have here tonight. And then that draft will be presented to you on the November meeting so that you may review it and potentially adopt it if it meets your expectations and desires. Next slide, please. So for tonight's meeting, as I said, a review of the work plan. We'll go through the proposal really quickly. We'll take your questions, public comment, and then dialogue and discussion. And then, like I said, November meeting, review, and December, we could kick off the work plan process. Or you could actually start right after the November meeting once it's adopted if you decide to meet in subcommittees. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly go over the main work plan tasks from the ordinance. These can be found in your packet in the ordinance. So I'll just go over them. One of the first one is for the commission to develop bylaws and a code of conduct. The other one would be to do a inspector general recruitment, which is already underway. Number 3 is to research and draft an independent and accessible procedure for community member complaints regarding the sheriff's office. Next slide, please. The 4th work plan task would be to conduct ongoing community outreach and engagement with communities within the county. Number 5 would be to develop and carry out a system and process to actively and continually monitor, report, and issue recommendations regarding Sheriff's Office compliance with all applicable policies, procedures, trainings, practices, and governing laws. Number 6 is the status of investigations. To the extent permitted by law, inform the public of the status of investigations into officer-involved shootings and use of force investigations. Next slide, please. The 7th potential work plan task is to develop procedures to require updates from the Sheriff's Office as to all officer-involved shootings or use of force investigations, again, as permitted by law. Number 8 would be to provide feedback on the effectiveness of the Inspector General to the Office of the County Executive for the purpose of their annual review. Number 9 is kind of a catch-all for the several annual public reports that are detailed in the ordinance that would share the Commission's community engagement efforts and other work. And then number 10 is training, to research and draft a required training curriculum to ensure commissioners possess necessary expertise to carry out the commission's mandates. So roughly about 10 potential tasks that you could approach with in your work plan. And we are 3 meetings in, which means we have 9 months. If we're thinking of an annual work plan, about 9 months before we come to the end of our first year. If I could please get the next slide. So these are some proposed work plan components. I propose tonight that the commission focus on the very first couple of these. The other ones we can maybe flesh out later, or if you have deliberative comments about some of the other ones, we can definitely mention them tonight. But the first one is surrounded around the mission and vision. So like what the commission aims to accomplish in your first year, aligned with your overall mission and objectives. I'll skip down to the top priorities. I think this is a key area for discussion tonight, to identify those key areas you'd like to focus on and to establish what are the priorities of those things and how they can align with the community's needs. Next slide. And then the other top area I think would be helpful to discuss tonight is the work plan structure. So if there's an idea, if we have 9 months left, kind of figuring out what to do first, what to do second, if you were to chunk it out in like 3-month increments, or however you would like to, but just kind of, if you can think of timelines or key milestones, that would be helpful tonight. And then how you would like to do that work. Would you like to work in subcommittees? Would you like to work as a full commission? We have seen that we've already established a subcommittee, which is the IG hiring subcommittee. We have 3 members on that group, and we meet pretty regularly to move the work forward, and then always bringing back updates and reports to the commission. So that's kind of a model of how you could work in smaller groups. Also, to let you know about the subcommittees, the ad hoc subcommittees, it's staff's desire to pair each of those subcommittees with technical experts. So for example, we have the IG recruitment subcommittee. We have paired you with our experts here at the county, which is our human resources director. If you were to choose to prioritize, for example, a community outreach program, we have an entire division with a handful of really excellent communicators and people who specialize in community engagement. We would pair that subcommittee if you chose to work in that way. We'd pair that person. We also have resources through the NACOL group that you've heard of. They have a number of subject matter experts that we could potentially pair up on some of the areas that are more related to civilian oversight, and those would be options for you. But I just wanted to mention that. Okay, and so next slide, please. So the other things that I thought would be helpful to look at are maybe possibly talk about how often these subcommittees might meet, and also what kind of engagement you'd like to have with the community, and what kind of resources you might need to fulfill your work. Next slide, please. And then finally, something to think about is how do we know that we're succeeding? How do we know that we're accomplishing the goals? So some sort of evaluation and accountability measures possibly would be helpful as well. So next slide. Again, that's my recommendation. I won't say it one more time, so we can go on to the next slide. And these are the focusing questions that I thought that after questions and open time, when we come back to have our discussion, these are 3 focusing questions. And so those are, what does the commission want to accomplish in its first year, and how does that align with your long-term vision? Which priorities should we focus on first to lay a strong foundation for effective oversights? And what is the best structure to accomplish our work? Ad hoc subcommittees, full commission work, or both? So during the deliberation, I will have this slide not up. I will have it down so that the viewing community on the Zoom will be able to see who's speaking, because if we have that whole comment deliberation period with this on the screen, I think it would be very tedious for our Zoom observers. But you all have a copy of the slide deck And so those focusing questions are on page 19. So when we get there, which will be in a little minute, those are the focusing questions. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much for that. I will move on to questions from the commissioners, and I will start with Commissioner Oldham Robinette. Sorry about that.
Could you please turn your microphone on?
There we go. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, I think as soon as we can get started on all of this, the better. I think, we've already got one functioning subcommittee ready. It seems to be a good way for us to go about doing all this, but questions for you. Okay. No. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner McInerney.
So some of the proposed tasks relate to things that at least at first blush appear to overlap or intersect with the Inspector General's role. And so presumably we'll be working in collaboration or partnership with the Inspector General. But if we're not going to be selecting an Inspector General till maybe somebody isn't actually in that role until March or April or something, or maybe later next year. What's your thought in terms of those tasks in October of 2025? Like I'm thinking, for example, about status of investigations, Inspector General feedback, some of those other things that don't seem to, anyway, I'm just looking for your thoughts, staff's thoughts in terms of how we tackle those at this point, or are those better left to defer until we have an Inspector General?
Yes, thank you for that question, Commissioner McInerney. There are some areas in the ordinance where it is clear that there was an intention for the commission to work very closely with the Inspector General in order to move these tasks forward. And so, but there are some others that don't. The language doesn't say that they will need to. For example, the training, it just says the Civilian Oversight Commission shall establish, well, in collaboration with the Inspector General, a required training curriculum. So what we would recommend is, if it seems like it's a top priority, there could be initial phases of work that could take place before the appointment. So for example, reaching out to other, experts in the area, seeing best practices, drafting ideas, getting together the subcommittee, figuring out what your course of work will be, so that in March, when the Inspector General is appointed, you can basically be ready with maybe even like a draft report or a recommendation, so that then that collaboration can really kick off strongly. So yes, there are some things that need to wait for the Inspector General in our reading of it. I don't know, is that anything you want to add there? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Clearly some of the items have nothing to do with the Inspector General. It seems like bylaws and code of conduct, things like that. But you're saying on even some of the ones that directly overlap with the Inspector General, there are certain things that we could do at this point if we wanted to? Is that what you're saying? Is that the most efficient? I guess what I'm looking for is maybe some direction from you. Is that the best use of our time? I'm just trying to think of the most efficient or best use of our time before an Inspector General's appointed.
That is entirely up to the commission and for you to deliberate and discuss tonight. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're here tonight, is to have that discussion of what really are those top pressing things, and can they be done in what can be done in the short term and what needs to be done in the long term. So yes, I think that's an excellent question, and I would just recommend that be a point of discussion for your deliberations tonight.
Commissioner Lee, do you have any?
Yeah. Lynn, I guess irrespective of whether we go as subcommittees or a full commission as we tackle the different tasks. I assume you have templates, examples of other oversight committees that we can kind of draft off of, so we get a sense of what other people are doing, give us ideas, help us put structure what we want to do for ourselves. Is that available?
Yes, staff can certainly assist in research once the subcommittees or the project is at hand.
Okay.
And the commission is asking for some assistance with researching those types of things. Since no direction has been initiated yet, staff has not been looking, I have not been looking into those things.
Got it.
But once the ball gets rolling on some of these areas, then it's staff's intention to support you in any way that I can. And like I said, that could be most likely setting you up with subject matter experts that can meet with you and give you some guidance.
Okay. So just thinking about, from a very practical standpoint, let's say you had a subcommittee that was working on community outreach.
Mm-hmm.
With the assistance of staff, we'd pair up with other experts locally.
Mm-hmm.
That subcommittee would meet however regularly they wanted, maybe weekly. They would draft things, but there's no Brown Act violation or anything like that. They can meet, they can talk,
Mm-hmm.
hash out ideas, throw things on the wall, see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Draft something, and then it goes out to the rest of the commission via email? How does that work?
Yeah, it would be report outs from the subcommittee, very similar to what we're doing with the IG hiring committee, right? They meet together, we go through things, and then they always are reporting out. And then when it is time to actually present, like tonight was the process for hiring has been presented to you. And so that's how it comes back to the full commission. So
Got it.
for example, using the communications, let's say a subcommittee meets several times with our communications experts, and then they develop a plan, like a strategic communications plan.
Mm.
And then they would maybe bring that back to the commission for review and approval. And then once that's approved, then implement the plan.
Got it.
Right. And so
Okay.
that could be kind of a rinse and repeat with the various different
Okay.
components that you have in front of you.
And that's how we get public comment in as well, because it's presented in this form.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the best practice, I think.
Understood. That makes
Mhm.
sense. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, well, you're gonna call him first.
Commissioner Gaston?
Yeah, I agree with Doug Lee, because I'm looking at each of these components of these boxes, and it's quite intensive. You know, there's at least 8 items, and whether we decide as a group, we're gonna tackle them all, or we do an ad hoc, or do the ad hoc take on a couple of these components. And at one point, at one of the last meetings, I talked about, this looks like it could be a retreat day, just to hash everything out. We knew that when we got on this commission, that it was gonna be work, and especially in this first year. But I don't want to rush through these either and be halfway, because they're really intense, all of them. And then there are some of real interest to me, especially when you talk about the community outreach or the reporting out from the sheriff's department, like the river reports. And so we need to be able to look at those things real in detail. And then some of the other comments that came up about visiting, I think we talked about visiting the jails once, because I didn't know that about whatever, this pad, safety pad. And that's the first time I've heard of it. And it's that safety. So could we get tours of that? It feels like we need to know a little bit more, some insight that's happening within the sheriff's department too.
Mhm. So you brought up 2 questions.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gaston. One was, could we meet in a retreat type of setting? And that could be something that the chair and vice chair could discuss. We are meeting between the meetings and having agenda setting meetings. So that is something that we could potentially discuss and consider. So that would be the appropriate place for that, would be for the chair and vice chair to create that type of meeting. And then your second question was about, could you go for a tour of the jail? And so in the ordinance, there's an entire section on training, and it is in the ordinance that the commission will develop a training curriculum. So it would be potentially a whole group or a subcommittee that would work together to think about what kind of training the commissioners need and exposure to different things and experiences like visiting the jail. And so then they would put together a training curriculum, and then they would bring that back to the commission, which would be adopted. And then once that's adopted, then you may implement your training curriculum. So the answer is, could you go on a tour of the jail? Absolutely. As a part of this program, the ordinance would like you to write a training curriculum. And that training curriculum is not just for you, but for future commissioners. So really setting down this strong foundation of the information that you need to be effective commissioners. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Also, in regards to the retreat, does that have to be open to the public?
Yes.
Okay. And then regarding, like I mentioned, this with these 8 boxes here, there's a lot of work. And so I'm not sure how all the other commissioners are feeling about just allocating a day out of our all busy lives, but we really want to not rush through this work plan.
Do you have any further questions?
I think that's it for now.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval. Commissioner Chan.
This is both a question and a comment in response to some of the other commissioners' comments, but I think some of these are daunting, but I think at least one of these is a low-hanging fruit that we can tackle pretty quickly, which is the bylaws and code of conduct, because there's so many other commissions that have models that we can build off of. And that doesn't seem to me that is a useful thing to do in a group setting, to write this document together, because it'll take forever, and we could use this potential upcoming focused meeting for other purposes, like discussion of more important policy goals. But I think for that, could we, and this is the question part, Ms. Walsh, could we make a plan that by the time of the next meeting that we can have the templates or suggested go-bys, and if possible, even a draft, a working draft, so that we can get that going, and then have a subcommittee evaluate that working draft and propose revisions and edits, and then, report back to the full commission about that, because I think that is something we can knock out from this list early to have one of these 8, 9 daunting things done. And it seems to me like the foundational item that we need to get done, like Vice Chair McAvoy mentioned, that there's certain foundational things we got to get going.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Chan. To answer your question, during your deliberative comments tonight, that is the perfect time to offer up the how, about, and the what, right? So what would you like to prioritize, and how would you like to go about it? And so so the answer is yes, you may make that suggestion to your fellow commissioners and hear each other out and come up with some sort of consensus on how to move forward tonight. And that's what your deliberation time is for tonight. So
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a few questions. One is, I think when you were reading the ordinance about the trainings, it said that the commission would work with the Inspector General to establish the training curriculum. Can we develop a training curriculum, and then I guess when the Inspector General comes in, then just present it to him, so that way it's a quick thing? Or does the Inspector General need to be a part of that process? Because I think that's something that we could.
I think it would be a great idea, just as advice as your staff liaison, to, once you do identify what your top priorities are, to go ahead and start working on them in your subcommittees or as a entire group. Even if it does say that it needs to be established in collaboration with the Inspector General, you can have done all of the research, all of the drafting, all of the talking to the experts and looking at best practices, so that when the Inspector General is appointed, you can say, welcome, we have this very well thoughtful draft plan ready, and then give them an opportunity to look at it, give you some feedback, and then you're on your way. So I would recommend whatever you determine are your priorities to just start working on them, and staff will support you with as much expertise as I can find for each of those, if you choose to work in subcommittees or if you choose to work as a larger commission on some of these issues. So yes.
And my second question is, if we choose to work in subcommittees, could we have multiple subcommittees going at once? Or is that, I don't know how much time you have.
This is why I'm going to outsource to the experts in the area. I appreciate that. So yes, you can have, and it's a discussion for you tonight, is how many could we have going at once? You have 9 commissioners, and you liked the way that the IG subcommittee was set up with 3, which was nice in case somebody was out. You always had 2 there in the meeting. So 3 commissioners per, maybe 3 working groups, subcommittees. I just like things to match. So 3, 3, 3, you know, but it's up to you. It's really your discussion tonight, how you want to work together, what your top priorities are, and how you want to accomplish them. So that's really, I'm turning it back over to you for your conversation tonight.
Okay, that's all my questions. Do any of the commissioners have any more questions? All right, I will open it up to public comment now, and speakers will have 2 minutes for their comments.
Can you hear me? Yeah, there, I can hear. I have a question, basically for staff, to clarify the difference between a working group versus an ad hoc group. Because a working group, it seems to me that needs to be formalized with a staff person, or as you're saying, an SME, subject matter expert, versus an ad hoc can be 3 experts right up there that want to do something and bring that something forward to the full group. So clarification on those differences, because it sounds like some of the commissioners would like to get working on some things, and they can be an ad hoc committee. But I think that clarification would be after they have drafted their bylaws and included in the bylaws language, the ad hoc committee versus a subcommittee, for that specification to be presented. Because, as I said, an ad hoc committee does not have to have a recorder and a staff member or anybody. It's just less than a quorum that can work on a specific topic for a specific time. And the chair can pick Jill, Jack, and Bob to head up the ad hoc committee X. And when you're finished with your work, come back and report to us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, everyone. I agree that that you need to take the time and make sure you get all your infrastructure in place. So important. I would highly recommend subcommittees for that, and I think I just want to reiterate that the wording on working plans are so important that it could really make or break you. I've been in some committees where if we didn't have it covered right with wording, we couldn't take up a certain issue, and it's kind of bit us a little bit. And so I think you should be cognizant of that. My suggestion is, since we've had a lot of input on like RIPA data, the jails, grant, funding with the thing that was just put in the IJ about the sheriffs getting grant funding, stuff like that. If you had, and then also the corner, not being an outside contract, you could have something as simple as, review and inspect all sheriff operations, including all outside contracts and funding, and so I think that, something as simple as that, it could just be even all sheriff operations. I'm not sure. You guys would have to clean it up a little or just kind of word it just right, but that would kind of encompass everything. You want everything. You want something in there where it is all encompassing. It's a catch-all. And so you could really do the work that you need to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening again. Steve Bingham, just briefly. It is a daunting list, and I would suggest, just to make it less daunting, some of the items, as has been alluded to, are clearly not appropriate until there's an IG in place. And so focus on the ones that you can do before the IG is here. And I certainly second or agree with the comment that you really should have a subcommittee right away to start writing bylaws. And there are templates out there. The San Rafael Police Advisory has its own bylaws and worked on that. And then, of course, training, some you can do, a lot of it without the IG. I do warn you to avoid what happened with the Police Advisory and Accountability Committee of San Rafael. They spent their entire first year getting trained. And I think it caused a certain lack of excitement and interest in the body, and they don't have as much power as you do. But I would get your teeth into something very important right now at the same time that you develop some training, in particular the comments about the jail, and also maybe a subcommittee on outreach to get that started now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, Mark Dale here. I've been around boards and commissions for 15 years, and I look at how things can get slowed down and bogged down. And so to wait for the IG to be hired, there is no guarantee. People may step up, they need to be vetted. That process might take longer than you might think. Bylaws, that's low-hanging fruit again. You can replicate other bylaws and kind of get an idea. A couple of things in the bylaws I'd like you to focus into is term limits. We had a little conversation at the end of the meeting last time because the county has staggered the term limits for different commissioners here. And so I'd like to kind of have you revisit that within the bylaws because I think you've got an opportunity to be able to readdress that a little bit. I know on other boards and commissions, it's three-year terms is kind of the norm in the county. So if you've been given a 1 or a 2-year term in your first out of the gate, I don't think you should be held to 3 terms because you wouldn't be able to serve out a 9-year period. Just an idea on that one. Bite-sized pieces, just get it down to bite-sized pieces. Don't get overloaded by this. Just really take it bite at a time and 2-bite muffins and kind of go with that approach on this thing. And really looking elsewhere to see what best practices are for other oversight commissions. Stipends I mentioned previously. Real quick, evening meetings, that was so humane what you did taking a 5-minute break. I want to call it out. I always bring water to meetings and I've got some Narcan over there if anybody wants it, but it's the right humane thing to do because evening meetings, we all kind of need to be hydrated and take care of ourselves. So I think that's part of what I wanted to share. And when we get to the renaming component, I'll leave you with this. I thought this was more of a state mandated commission versus a discretionary commission. And I think you guys are kind of in the middle because the AB 1185.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone, Heidi Merchant again. It sounds like there's some things that you can start on right away. I 100% get wanting to meet and have a retreat because nobody in their work ever makes a work plan in a 2-hour meeting. But regardless of that, you also have things you can do that were already talked about, like bylaws. You're already doing the recruitment. There's some interest probably in figuring out what types of training you all would like, so you're more knowledgeable about your role. So I agree, like maybe getting started with a few things and then having the other things be, as we finish these things, we will reconsider what we want to put on next, I think is okay. I also think, like other people have mentioned, putting some type of waiver in there that says, this was the best work plan we could develop at the time we did it. And if things come up in the community that really need our attention, we reserve the right to change our plan. Because we've seen in some other committees and commissions that it's like, that's not on your plan. You weren't going to work on that. So wait till next year or what have you. And I think we all know in our community things will happen that members of our community will want you all to weigh in on and work on. The three things that I listed don't require meet and confer with the unions, and some of the things that you'll be working on probably will. When you come up with recommendations, the sheriff's office is going to consider that that's changing their working conditions or a complaint policy that they've already had. And we have people from the sheriff's office in the room who could probably help you figure out how to set up a ride-along or maybe a tour of the jail, which I don't think either of those are training. It's just you meeting people who work for the department and seeing how they interact with the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I'll stick to my what I'll continue to advocate for. Ms. Gaston, you made a great point regarding moving along, getting some things done. The one thing you mentioned was RIPA data. And since Marin City is in your district, I will humbly ask you to go to the DA's office and get the 30 years prior to RIPA data, which is very damning. You'll see some early 90s, some late 80s, 1990, all those years are damning is an understatement. So it's your district. I think, I hope you know you want to look at this data. So I'll ask you again to the DA's office has the old version of RIPA data before it was called RIPA data. I've seen it. It's ugly, very ugly. So I hope you'll present that data to this board to get a picture of Marin City, the community that we love.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any more public comments from the audience? Are there? Okay.
Hi, Nancy Weber, part of the original working group. My understanding is that they're asking for the previous RIPA data that has not been published as yet, but apparently MB Free does have it, so they might be able to come by and give you a report. Thank you. Give a report and present. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anybody in the Zoom that would like to comment?
The first speaker is Eva. Please unmute.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thanks. I just want to point out that you just heard from 3 members of the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Working Group, and to my understanding, none of them identified themselves as such. They were critical in preventing any transparency with that group, so that's important. I do want to suggest some areas that didn't make it onto your list. And one obvious thing that I think would be popular, especially given what we're seeing in the polls, and since we live in a very blue Democratic county, I think there is significant interest in how much Israeli surveillance tech the sheriff is using. And I would like to point out that the majority of Democrats have voiced considerable support for Palestinians at this point. It's a sea change in American attitudes, and we're even seeing a lot of young conservatives and a lot of former law enforcement and a lot of former military voicing their concerns about Israeli surveillance tech. And those last 2 groups should really know why why this stuff is dangerous. Another thing that didn't come up was any interest in addressing why the sheriff is now in charge of the coroner's office. That's a pretty obvious conflict of interest. And that should be somewhere on your list, high on your list. And unfortunately, I think a lot of this just points to, in the end, this body is appointed, just like the working group was appointed by the county. And it doesn't actually represent the interests of the voters in the county, of the concerns of the groups that are being targeted the most. So that is kind of important to consider those other points. And as regards the San Rafael
Thank you
Police
for your comment,
Advisory Group,
Ava.
I would only.
The next speaker is Chris Jewell. Please unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I have a question, or rather a comment about the section 237, 210 in the ordinance regarding independent investigations. In the case where the Sheriff's Department's own investigations are deemed to be deficient in some way, the section here talks about that it has to be like sent back to the sheriff to say, yes, it's it's deficient, and can you do improve on your investigation. That itself is an issue, I think. Why is the sheriff investigating their own complaints? Complaints are really important as far as the public is concerned. Those should be very transparent, and if the sheriff is doing its own internal investigations, then maybe there's an issue there. In any case, in the case where the investigation is deemed deficient, the section 237, 210 says that the investigation if the investigation is deemed deficient after being returned, the Inspector General can refer the matter to the Commission. I object to that word. I think the Inspector General must refer the matter to the Commission, because then upon review, an independent investigator is brought in. So I want that word can to be changed to must. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
The next and final speaker is Carol Kelly Thomas. Please unmute.
Hello, thank you. I've heard a lot of things, and some of the comments that have already been made address my thoughts and my concerns. One that really stuck out for me is the hiring of an IG kind of being put before some of the working items on your agenda. And although it may be a press to get someone in there and hired right away, my concern is the fact that if you haven't gotten all of the things that need to be ironed out before that comes in, then the IG comes in with his own agenda and his own thoughts. And so I'd like to see as much as can be worked out in the forefront before the hiring of the IG, so that he clearly or she understands what the commissioners' ideals, thoughts, and agendas are, written clearly out in the bylaws, but also where we stand as a community, and that they are there to support the communities in which they are serving. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other public comments? All right, thank you. Public comment is now closed. For our discussion, I will ask Deputy County Executive Walsh to put the slides with the questions that will guide our discussion.
So I think if I do that, then our folks at home that are watching won't
Okay.
be able to see your lovely faces. And so instead, I just ask commissioners to look at slide 19 with the questions, and I'll just read them one time for the public. These are just recommended focusing questions for you as you deliberate tonight. What does the commission want to accomplish in its first year, and how does that align with its long-term vision? Which priorities should we focus on first to lay a strong foundation for effective oversight? And what is the best structure for accomplishing our work, ad hoc subcommittees, full commission focus, or both? And I'll ask our broadcast friends to take the slide down so that the discussion can commence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walsh. I will start to my right. Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, going back to what I was referring to in the question session, I think my proposal would be subject to the rest of the commissioners' agreement, is that for the next session, we ask that we get a sample of other bylaws and codes of conduct, put in a request for a draft, a working initial draft of one that could be adapted for our use, if possible. That might not be a reasonable workload request, but at the very least, a sample of suggested bylaws for us to study. And then maybe at the same time, at the next session, we can constitute a subcommittee to then work on trying to move that draft to a more final version to propose to the rest of the commission.
Okay, I think before moving on, I think what would be most helpful for staff to develop a proposed work plan for our next meeting, which I believe is the idea. I think giving like maybe a list of 3 priorities that you think that we should work on, and then your input on whether you think we should do them in subcommittees or just as a general group.
Okay, well then, at a higher level, I think that one of the priorities should be getting our bylaws and code of conduct done. And by subcommittee.
Okay, and do you have any other suggestions for anything else that should be prioritized?
To me, everything else, I think, turns a little bit on the recruitment of the Inspector General. But I do agree that there can be processes that are being worked on for that day, right? And we would be working most closely with the IG on complaints and investigations and oversight. So some combination of those other items.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Cieslak-Sandoval?
Yeah, I think I echo a lot of what you say, Commissioner Chan. I'm not sure that I think it's the best idea to have them bring sample bylaws directly to the full commission. I think that it may be a better idea for us to start. I think the ad hoc or working group, whatever you want to call it, works very well for what we're doing with the IG hiring. And I would propose that we do similar format for a lot of our other topics. And I think maybe the right option would be as soon as possible to have a working group doing the bylaws and maybe also doing our code of conduct. I don't know if there should be probably different groups. I don't know. That I think it would be most appropriate for those samples to go directly to those groups and not directly to us. But
I like that better.
Okay. So that's, I think, my 3 priorities that I would say would be bylaws, code of conduct, training curriculum. I think we can also start working on pretty heavily and start having some training, because I do think a lot of us kind of don't really know what we're doing. Speaking for myself, not speaking for anyone else, but I think training would be great. And then I agree. I think a lot of the other things really, we can do them before the IG starts, but it would be, I think, a little bit later in the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gaston?
Okay, I'm in agreement with both our commissioners to my right. Okay, the bylaws and the code of conduct, and training and ad hoc committees, because I have one that I'm interested in all, but especially the one that has to do with the community outreach, the compliance, which will engage in knowing more information about all of the RIPA reports and the status of investigations. But it kind of ties into how the complaint process works. But I would definitely like to be on that committee, but not all of the committees.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lee?
Yeah, I'm in general agreement with everything that's been said. I think it's Commissioner Chan's idea is a great one, and I think we should do it in a subcommittee. I think we should get started right away. Just a thought I'll throw out. As far as community outreach as a task. It seems like that's a lot of the feedback we're getting at these meetings and the emails that are coming in, kind of focus around community transparency. And although I don't think this commission has any teeth yet until we have a lot of this groundwork that we're talking about doing, until that's done, it may make sense, and I just throw out, it may make sense to start a subcommittee on that, just to start laying some groundwork, doing some of the research, RIPID data, pre-RIPID data, talking to some of the experts within the community who are experts at outreach to try and help design something, you know, that will be effective for what we're trying to do. Again, implementation may be delayed until we have an IG and have some teeth, but it's a very large task. So maybe I just throw it out there, maybe something we should think about starting.
Thank you. And Commissioner McInerney?
Yeah, I to piggyback on comments, I'd recommend that we start with, we form 3 subcommittees. One dealing with bylaws and the code of conduct. Seems like there's general agreement on that, that staff works with the subcommittee on some sample template bylaws and code of conduct, and then those can be brought back either at the November, December meeting, and we can get those implemented or discussed, and then get community input on it or public comment on it and decide those. I would also think the ones having a subcommittee on training for the commission. So we work, again, same thing where you work with staff, pull together best practices and ideas on ways to inform us so we can learn about how the sheriff's department operates and how civilian complaints are handled, and we get training on all that, do ride-alongs, that's part of it. So the subcommittee comes back to us with some ideas on suggested ways of training us. And then the third one is the community aspect, community outreach, form a subcommittee on, and we can start that now. We can have a subcommittee, and it sounds like Felicia wants to get involved in that, which is great, where we work with staff, come up with best practices on community outreach, and start and develop in the next couple of months some at least ideas and best practices on developing community outreach and get going, and then bring that back at a meeting where we can talk about all the ideas that the subcommittee discussed and recommended. So those are my ideas for 3 that we should probably focus on. And I think of those 3 because they seem like, to use a word I think Winston used, it's like low-hanging fruit, things that are focused on what we do and things that I think can be accomplished relatively easily.
Thank you. And Commissioner Oldham Robinette.
Yep. Yeah, I would like, I think the idea of starting some subcommittees or ad hoc groups or whatever we want to call them and however we want to work them would be ideal. The bylaws and code of conduct is a obvious one. The Inspector General recruitment's already underway. As Doug was saying, we have been, you know, we keep getting all these complaints from people. We don't know what to do with those, right? We're just reading them and wow, okay. So the training is what I think we really need to focus on, because to go out into the community and have meetings, we need to know what we're doing. So I think the training is important. Reaching out to the, you know, to the communities and the sheriffs and the, you know, to do that. So, I don't know which one. I mean, I have a number that I'm interested in, obviously, not bylaws and code of conduct, let me tell you that, but, so I think we need to get set up.
Thank you. Commissioner Gaston.
Lynn, I would like to ask how are you respond to the letters that come in, the complaint letters that are coming in?
Sure, I respond that they have been received and forwarded to the commission for their review and consideration.
But then if I was a person and making a complaint and I'll be like, okay, so you gave it to the commission, but then what? Like, it's just hanging.
That's right. It's, in the ordinance, it is under your purview to create a process for those.
So that should be a priority, because if I'm writing a letter to complain and I don't get any response back right away, just say I'm sending it to the commissioners, like calling China somewhere or Thailand or somebody, you know, when you call in and try to get an answer, customer service. And I didn't mean it like that, but I mean it like, I didn't mean it like that, but I meant that sometimes even when you call, you can't even get an answer from people anymore. You just get this little recording and you just left hanging. And we're too close in this county to not have another response. So you could say you gave it to the commission and then that's it. So they're expecting to get something back from you or us to say, yes, we heard it. And what?
The public, the public outreach component can have a long-term component on how the programs are going to work, but it can also address the short-term issue of how to deal with these issues that are coming up right away.
And that would not need the Inspector General.
No, it's how to develop things before the Inspector General is appointed. How do we respond to the public?
Yeah, you form a subcommittee that we just discuss how we deal with these complaints that come in, and we can talk about and decide that now.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly hitting on the point that I was trying to articulate earlier, is that it's such a pressing need. When you talk about things that are important right now, there's so much of this community stuff which is going on that we have no vehicle to respond to. And you gotta also be careful, because you don't want to be in a situation where you got to respond to every single email that comes in all the time. You'll never get anything else done. But to form a committee to figure out how to address it, I think is a pressing need.
Commissioner Oldham Robinette.
Yeah, I think we don't even know what the complaint process is like, right? So, I mean, when there's a complaint, what happens? So that's why I think the education is important as well, but it's to get started on all this, because definitely I don't want people hanging like they sent an email and it's off in a black hole. We want them to know we're hearing and listening and trying to do our work. So, yeah, but the complaint ones, and the same thing with the community meetings, I'm all in on trying to get that, but we need to have a purpose to them. And so if there's complaints, they need to have, we need to have something set up so that when we have community meetings, if there are, they know who to contact, how to contact, and where to go with that. So.
Well, and I think that that's what the purpose of the subcommittee would be, is to develop that process.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily like taking on all these complaints, but developing the process that, like, okay, when complaints come in, how is it that they're going to be handled?
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other comment? So I think it's clear that the bylaws and the code of conduct are like priority number one. And definitely that it needs to be done via subcommittee. Maybe we want to form the subcommittee this evening for the bylaws, maybe hold off on the other ones, but at least for that, formulate the subcommittee for that. That way we can get that going for our next meeting.
Is there a reason we need to wait on anything else?
Oh, we could.
I'd like to get started on the this one, the community outreach and compliance and status of investigations, and bring a draft back. Did I work with Lynn?
Can you wait? No, not during the meeting. I'm sorry. I need to focus on.
Yeah, like.
So I would work.
I'm sorry.
Present a draft to you before the next meeting about the community outreach. Or,
Well,
does
so I
it
think-
have to be
I
three
think
people?
I do have a question. So we're developing a working plan, which you're gonna take all of our input from tonight and develop and present to us at the next month's meeting. But can we develop these subcommittees meantime and between time to get that going?
Yes, you could develop your subcommittees tonight if you'd like to.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I could, go ahead.
I think that we should pick maybe 3 that we start with
Yeah.
and tackle first and choose those 3, and then we can all kind of volunteer and put out our interest for what we would like.
Okay, so I think that the 3 that we had the most, everybody was in favor of most is the bylaws, the training, curriculum, and the community outreach / complaints. Okay,
It's all, yeah.
okay, so, we'll go one by one. What commissioners are interested in the bylaws subcommittee, bylaw code of conduct subcommittee? Commissioner McInerney, Commissioner Lee?
And I'll do it too.
Okay, well, there we go. Commissioner Chan, we have 3 for that. And then Lynn, I'm assuming you'll reach out to those commissioners to kind of set up how the meetings will go for that.
Yes, absolutely. And we already have 3 sample bylaws that we're ready to share with you so that you
Perfect.
can start looking at them and making decisions on what kind of language you like.
Perfect,
Yeah,
thank
we're ready
you.
for that.
And then, for the trainings, the subcommission for the trainings.
I guess me.
Okay, Commissioner Oldham Robinette.
I would be happy to. I don't know if we should also think about our missing commissioners,
Oh, yeah.
but not to throw a wrench in anything, but
that's a good call.
yeah, I'd be happy to do training, but I'm already on a subcommittee, so depending.
Well, when you're not here, you get appointed.
Do you want to appoint people? Yeah.
Who are we missing?
To do the,
Do the other ones.
Yeah.
because of that. But
Okay.
Maybe we have enough to do that, when we see who wants to do training or
I want to
outreach,
do,
if we have enough people. we
I
can
want to
show
do
that.
outreach.
okay. Well, because I'd be interested in doing the trainings as well. But I like Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval said, I'm on another commission or subcommission already, subcommittee. So if other people would want to step forward, I would be happy to step down, but I'm not sure, because we do have 2 commissioners out, yeah.
Take your microphone.
Vice Chair, we do have the ability to have 2 to 3, up to 4 people on these ad hoc committees that are temporary committees that are just to develop the work plan.
Okay,
So you could, for example, appoint
it.
3, and then if one of the missing commissioners wants to join, they can join as a 4th. So these are ad hoc work plans, and so they'll develop what the permanent plan is. And as soon as the work plan is developed, all of these ad hoc committees will dissolve because they're only temporary to create the work plan. The work plan will establish how the process will go forward.
Okay, thank you. So then, okay, so Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval, Commissioner Oldham Robinette, and myself are interested in doing the training curriculum subcommittee. And then we have the complaints.
Oh, no, go, keep going.
And then we have the complaints
Community outreach.
/ community. Should we combine that into one?
My opinions are intricately related.
Yeah.
Why not just call it community outreach? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
that'll handle
yeah,
complaints.
okay. So community outreach subcommittee. Commissioner Gaston, Commission,
I'd also like to.
okay, Commissioner Oldham Robinette, I swear I'll get it.
Just cover Lynn.
Anybody else?
Well, then we can reach out to the missing 2, right?
That's right. Also, a subcommittee of 2 is
Subcommittee.
fine as well.
Okay. So we have 2 already,
Yeah.
and then we reach
So we
out to
can,
the other.
yeah, we can, let's do that. And then, I also, want to, in the work plan that's going to be presented to us, I do want to, reserve the right to make adjustments to the, like, that would be my input into the work plan, is that it does leave room to, as the commission continues, that we can make adjustments for things that come up. So
I will be sure to include that language in the draft that
Okay.
I present
Do
to
we,
you.
do we need to, do we need to make a motion for these subcommittees, or are we just, we're good?
Okay, I will just summarize what I'm hearing tonight, and then you can you can, I don't need to move. Okay, I will summarize. So tonight, the commission has indicated that their top three priorities are writing the bylaws and code of conduct, developing a training curriculum, and developing some community outreach, like a community outreach plan that also addresses how, when people reach out with complaints, how we respond to them. We have Commissioner Chan, Commissioner Lee, and Commissioner McInerney, who would like to serve on a subcommittee around bylaws and code of conduct. We have on the training curriculum, we have Commissioner Cieslak Sandoval, Vice Chair McAvoy, and Commissioner Oldham Robinette. And then on the community outreach / communicating when people reach out regarding complaints, we have Commissioner Gaston and Commissioner Oldham Robinette. And then of our two commissioners that are not here tonight, they may opt to join one or more, as long as we don't go over the number of 4 commissioners on a temporary ad hoc subcommittee assignment. And if that is the direction that I'm receiving from you tonight, I will put that into a work plan draft, which I will then share with the chair and vice chair before our next meeting, so they can look it over and refine it and make sure it accurately represents what we discussed tonight. And then it'll come back to you for approval in November. Does that suffice?
Good. Question, if we have some ideas ahead of time, we can send that to you now, right? So we
Absolutely.
don't have to wait a month. Before.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, please do. And so, can the commission subcommittees start meeting right away? Just a quick question for our deputy county counsel. I was asking if they can start right away in their subcommittees.
Yes, I just asked that somebody move and second and take a vote on the summary from Lynn Walsh.
Do we have a motion for the summary from Ms. Walsh?
I move what Lynn said.
I second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, I think we accept your summary then. Item number 6 on the agenda is the consideration for the recommendation to change the name of the commission. I don't know how we're doing on time. Is this something that people want to discuss tonight or continue to the next month's meeting?
I would like it to discuss it tonight. I mean, it's 8:18. It shouldn't, we pretty much know about 8:30. But I would like to discuss it because I feel it's a very important concern and topic. So will we get a report from you, Lynn? Okay.
Yeah, well, I'll invite Deputy County Executive Walsh to present a report on changing the name to the Civilian Oversight Commission.
All right, my broadcast friends, if we could please pull up the slide deck. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Vice Chair McAvoy. Tonight on your agenda is a recommendation to change the name of the Civilian Oversight Commission. In the staff report, I provided for you some policy language to help guide your conversation tonight. As you are aware, your Civilian Oversight Commission is a Board of Supervisors discretionary committee that is tasked with assisting in the oversight of the Marin County Sheriff's Office and providing the public an opportunity to directly participate in the oversight process of the Sheriff's Office. And then it's been in several of your staff reports of the Commission's purpose, so I won't read it again. I'm sure you are familiar with it, so I will just go on to the next slide. A little bit of background about the name of the Civilian Oversight Commission. I found it referenced in several documents that led to the formation of this commission. For example, in AB 1185, it is referred to in that text of that document as the Sheriff Oversight Board. There was a civil grand jury report that referred to it as a Citizens Oversight Board. when the Board of Supervisors responded to the civil grand jury, they called it a Community Oversight Commission. And then following that, the Community Outreach Working Group was appointed by the Board of Supervisors, and they did extensive community outreach and engagement. And their report, which they presented to the Board of Supervisors, they referred to it as the Civilian Oversight Commission. And I have spoken to a few people who were involved in some of those meetings, and they said that this topic did come up, and they discussed it very extensively about what to call this meeting body, and this is the name that they landed on. And the Board of Supervisors accepted that name as it was recommended by the Community Outreach Working Group, and the commission, or the Ordinance 3824, which formed your commission, was adopted in November of last year. So next slide, please. So tonight, the recommendation, I understand, stems from a concern that the current name does not accurately convey the commission's role and purpose. So if the commission does decide to change the name, you would need to decide on a new name. Staff would go and revise the ordinance and bring back to you at another meeting a revised ordinance with the new name swapped out. And then it would require Board of Supervisors concurrence to hear this item. It would need to go to 2 different board meetings because it is rewriting the municipal code. So it would receive a first hearing, and then there would be a public comment and review period, and then it would have a second meeting. I was looking at the agenda load of the Board of Supervisors, and we estimate, staff's best estimate is about 3 months potentially to adopt the ordinance. And because that it is there is a potential to require a meet and confer with our labor partners. And so tonight, the conversation or discussion is whether or not to change the name and then to consider next steps. That is my report, and I'm happy to take questions.
All right, thank you for your report. I will bring it to the commission for questions. I will start to my right. Commissioner Chen. Commissioner Gaston.
I don't have any questions. I just really highly recommend that we include the Marin County Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission. When I was asked to send some information about how people sign up to be aware of the meetings, and they were like, what is this? It's civilian to who is just too bland. And I'm just really surprised that the Board of Supervisors just let it go by like this, especially when they know this has been a topic of concern and conversation through the grand jury, through the community for so many years, that has finally come to fruition. And the fact that when we all applied, we applied as applying for the Marin County Sheriff's Oversight. I did not apply for a Civilian Oversight Commission. So I'm really adamant, and whether it take 3 months is in time for the Inspector General and all the work plan that we have to do.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah,
Commissioner Lee.
I have no questions, but I also think it'd be as simple, just we call it the Marin County Sheriff Office Civilian Oversight Committee, and then we get that cool acronym MCSOCOC. But no questions.
Commissioner McInerney. Commissioner Oldham.
What are labor partners?
Yeah, that's
Meet and confer, may require meet and confer with labor partners?
If we're going to potentially change the ordinance and go before the board, the Human Resources Department will evaluate the potential impacts on the Sheriff's Association and various associations that are within the Sheriff's Department, and decide what level of meet and confer that might have to happen, which is a series of meetings that may have to occur with the sheriff's deputies.
But okay, so that I don't understand, because again, if we're talking about this report that was been taking place by the civil grand jury, we're talking about in 2020, But then there's evidently been conversations that's been going on over the years, and it's finally happened. So again, when I applied because it was the Marin County Sheriff's Civilian Oversight Commission. And in hindsight, it it's just, I'm just curious on why the Board of Supervisors just made it so general.
The Board of Supervisors adopted the recommendations of the advisory group that consulted with the county executive's office and provided recommendations to the board, and the board adopted the ordinance. Prior to the adoption of the ordinance, there was a meet and confer with the labor partners as well. And so if there is going to be a potential change, we just would need to evaluate whether or not we need to continue the meet and confer with the labor partners.
So even when the Inspector General is under the Civilian Oversight Commission, not the Sheriff's Department and the commissioners, it just still seemed too general to me.
The Inspector General works for the county executive's office. And then the Oversight Commission is its own independent body that's been delegated by the Board of Supervisors the power to execute the things that are in the ordinance.
That's my statement.
I do have a question about the meet and confer process. If we decided to change it and then it was brought to them, could they say, "Oh no, that we don't like"? Would they have any say so in us wanting to change the name?
Potentially, it's speculative at this point, but it would be once the suggestion is made, it would be run through Human Resources and their labor relations to evaluate whether or not further meet and confer would occur. It's a potential step, but until we have a decision from Human Resources, we don't know exactly what the next step would be.
And then my other question is Ms. Walsh, you said that the Board of Supervisors did outreach to the community about the name of the commission. Was that with the working group? Like what parts of the community did they consult for that?
So the working group, it's in my staff report, in general about the topic of civilian oversight and the sheriff's office. They had, let's see, 3 community conversations, 9 focus groups, and 526 multilingual community surveys. And drawing on that extensive engagement, the working group submitted their recommendation. It's my understanding from speaking to some folks that were present during that time, during those many working group meetings, the topic of what are we going to call this group did come up, and they talked about it very extensively, and they drew on their experience of the engagement and what they heard from the community, and they landed on the name Civilian Oversight Commission. And then they brought that report to the board and said, here's our recommendation. And it's many of the things you'll see in the ordinance, just the structure and the term limits and all of those things were recommended by this working group along with the name. And so the Board of Supervisors adopted the recommendations of the working group for the oversight in general, and along with it, the name.
And do you have any information on why they chose not to include the sheriff's department name in it at all?
I don't know. I was not present during those meetings, and I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Commissioner Cisak-Sandoval.
If we were to recommend or ask to change the name, and we brought the ordinance back to the board to consider, and went through the process with labor, would we be reconsidering the entire ordinance? Like, would we be asking the board to come back and look at the full ordinance that established this commission? Or would we just be asking them to look at the name? And also, I guess, as part of that, in those discussions that the county would be having with our labor partners, would they be reopening the discussion about the entire ordinance and about the entire commission, or just discussion about the name?
It would just be about the name.
Okay.
Do any of the commissioners have any more questions for staff? I think the next step is to open it to public comment. And comments will be 2 minutes.
My comment is, I appreciate all of the suggestions, and I suggest that the bylaws ad hoc committee, in working on your bylaws, the first thing is where you can put in the name of the group. Those bylaws are going to go before the Board of Supervisors, and any of those other possible requirements of HR can be considered at that time. So go forward. Be not afraid. If you stumble, continue on. Work on the title. And I appreciate that the title includes civilian because you are representing the civilians. I appreciate that it specifies whom your oversight party is, the the office of the sheriff's office, or however you want to do that acronym. So I think the suggestion of whoever suggested the initials first and then the rest of the name is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Sure, I'm glad I ate my Wheaties and Cheerios this morning past my bedtime. So what I've got is a couple things. I looked at the posting for the Inspector General's position. The example brochure, and I think this might have come out of Sonoma County, is Director, Independent Office of Law Enforcement Review and Outreach. And then you go to the Inspector General posting that actually is Marin County. It just says County of Marin Inspector General. Then it isn't until you get into the body of it that it says, oh, okay, you're looking at policies of the MCSO. And I agree fully. My background is U.S. Air Force veteran. I worked in the entertainment industry for a while, Unsolved Mysteries and Murphy Brown, and had to deal a lot with media and interface. When we got up here to Marin, I took over a company in advertising and marketing. And so you're always kind of looking at focus group, trying to figure out what's the best name, what's the best message that you can get out there. And I love the acronym MCSO, COC, totally works good. But having the sheriff's name in there, either in the front of it or in the back of it, Civilian Oversight Committee of the Sheriff's Office, Marin County Sheriff's Office, you could do it that way, or you do it in the front. When it's in the front, it's a little wonky for me, just because it's the Marin County Sheriff's Office Civilian Oversight Committee or Commission. So it kind of says, okay, who owns it? Whereas if you have the Civilian Oversight Commission of the Marin County Sheriff's Office, it puts it, bam, just right there. And I think you need to just be brave. And I love your words of wisdom. Don't be afraid of a thing. If you make a little misstep, so what? But you just keep on marching along. And I know there's a lot of good folks in the sheriff's organization who mean well. And if there's somebody who's not working right, not doing it, or complaints, that's what you're all about. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. To me, it's extremely very obvious. The Board of Supervisors are five, safe to say, intelligent people, intelligent. They chose this name to stay the best that they chose that name to stay out of public view best they can. Keep this, the less scrutiny, the better for them. They don't want, best as they can, stay out of the view of publications outside the IJ. The IJ loves the county, of course. They'll never report truly. To stay out of the way of the LA Times, New York, East Bay, San Jose, local communities who may who know that Marin is a highly racist and equitable county. So leaving the sheriff's name out of there will kind of fly a little bit on the radar. And that's pretty obvious why that name was chosen. It's what the county of Marin does. It's what they do. They expect no one to say anything. It's quiet here, lots of wealth. Be nice, be polite, be quiet. Don't ask questions. All is well here. All is well here. We all have lots of wealth, fancy cars. There's Mount Tam there. Second homes, wine countries. We have lots of wine in our homes. We drive around our cars with fancy bikes. No license plate. We don't get pulled over. Except in Marin City. So keep this under wraps, under quiet, no noise, civilian, no sheriff. Keep it under wraps. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I don't think there are any other comments from the audience. Are there any public comments on Zoom?
Yes, the first speaker is Eva. Please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thanks. I'm sorry for the background noise. I'm on my bike commute home. Listen, this is pretty rich. I mean, I would call it bleakly hilarious. So what just came out in this meeting, apparently, is the people who came up with the misleading title of Civilian Oversight Commission. They were the members of the Civilian Oversight Working Group, or as I called it, the Sheriff Civilian Oversight Working Group. And as they later changed their name to Community Outreach Working Group. I mean, there's just a lot of obfuscation going on. But I want to point out that that presentation, I was there in person for the presentation. Heidi Merchant was one of the lead presenters with Curtis Akins. Both of them have serious conflicts of interest. They never disclose to the public with their ties to law enforcement. And they presented it, and Merchant's line was, you know, we want to do this with love. And I'm like, well, yeah, I would hope you would want to do it with love because you're married to the assistant sheriff of Sonoma County who runs a deadly jail. Now, anyone in their right mind knows that calling this Civilian Oversight Commission without the word sheriff in it is completely, you know, it's of a piece with the rest of the process. It's of a piece with an anti-democratic process, a very opaque process where you had, you know, I had to run so many CPRAs just to find out all the different lies that Heidi Merchant was involved in. And, you know, I don't have time in 2 minutes to describe all of that, but there has been no apology from Merchant or Bingham or Weber. In fact, Bingham sent me a note saying that they absolutely had to operate in secrecy because otherwise nothing would have worked. Well, there is no excuse for anyone to write that. And I noticed that none of them have come up to talk about this, even though they have been in the room to talk about.
Thank you for your comment.
Madam President, there are no more speakers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will close public comment and I will move on to the commission to discuss this item, which is to consider a recommendation to change the name of the commission and consider the next steps. I will move down the line. Commissioner Oldham Robinette.
Maybe it rolls off the tongue, Oldham Robinette, just Oldham.
Oldham Robinette, okay.
I think it's important to change the name, to add the word sheriffs in there, because this is what we are here for. And whether it's at the front or the back, I mean, I was always thinking to be at the end, but, you know, if the initials are better, I don't know. So, yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner McInerney.
I'm going to respectfully disagree and just indicate, I think this issue is is totally form over substance. Board of Supervisors passed a law that we're bound by, and it deals in great detail with that we're providing oversight over the Sheriff's Department. I just don't, I think we should be spending our time on the substance of the work plan, getting things done, doing the things that we've discussed earlier, getting involved in telling the Board of Supervisors that they should rename this and potentially having other ramifications, like having to meet with the labor unions and the like, I think is just sort of I would think it would be a better use of staff's time that we focus on the work plan and the things we want to accomplish rather than spend time on something that I just don't, I think is more, as I said, form over substance. So I would recommend that we just like move ahead with what we already discussed earlier and focus on what we hope to accomplish rather than the naming or what the sign says on the door.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. I do think the name's important to a lot of people and a lot of stakeholders, so I will take the other side, and I do think changing the name makes sense, and it's a simple ask. What happens as the ball gets rolling, we'll have to see, but I think we should recommend a change, and I actually like the recommendation of Civilian Oversight Committee of the Marin Sheriff's County Office. I think that's fine. We leave it to engineer to come up with a better acronym, but the advertising guy with a better name, so yeah, I'm good with that.
And as everyone know, you got the call on me.
Good. Commissioner Gaston?
Okay, my feelings is upfront, and I believe especially as we're moving with the bylaws, with the community outreach, we're already getting more positive feedback, even at the meetings from either on Zoom and in person. And we always said we're going to be transparent, and we definitely just need to keep that Marin County Sheriff's in there. And I like it, the Oversight Commission of the Marin County Sheriff's Department. But it's important, and it's all part of our community outreach and the work that we have to do with the work plan and with the Inspector General.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cisak Sandoval?
I'm not convinced that the name makes a difference to the work we're doing. Personally, I'm not sure that the juice is worth the squeeze for the amount of work that it's going to take from staff to change the name. The Marin County Sheriff's Office is talked about all over the ordinance multiple times, many times. We all can talk about it in terms of, the Marin County Sheriff's Office, and we talk to civilians and friends and family. I'm not convinced that officially changing the name and asking the board to do that is something we should be focused on.
Thank you for your comment. Commissioner Chan?
I'm fine with it. My only with changing the name, especially if there are strong views in favor of it, which there appear to be. I think my only suggestion would be if we do change the name, I would make it over rather than of, so COC over the Marin County Sheriff's Office. If we keep it as of, it has the same problem that someone else had pointed out, that of what, does it sound like you're part of that organization? So that'd be my only suggestion, so I'm happy to support it.
Thank you for your comment. I'm kind of torn, I'm not gonna lie. I do think that, I don't know why the working group didn't include the name sheriff, or maybe I do, I don't know. But I do feel like there is going to be a lot involved in changing the name, and staff's time could be spent better. I don't know. I'm torn. Just being honest. I do like, if we do decide to change it, I do like the over rather than the of. I think that does make sense.
We provided an estimate of the staff time in the staff report.
I think
we estimate 100 to 125 hours of staff time.
Back to the full board. It needs to be brought at the next meeting, since hopefully everybody will be here.
So you want to put it off to the next meeting?
Yeah, because I don't think we should make a vote on it now. No, hopefully everybody's at the next meeting.
Commissioner?
I will not be at the next meeting, but you know where I stand.
Yeah.
I kind of disagree. We took the time tonight. We kept
Yeah.
people towards
Yeah.
8:30. I think we should vote on it. I think it's likely to pass. I feel like it sounds
Yeah.
like most people, but I don't think we should push it. We decided to stay here. We should do it.
I agree.
Okay.
Do we have a motion?
Well,
I have a motion to take it to a vote.
No, well, we have to name it.
Oh,
Oh.
and I would go with the Civilian Oversight Committee over the Marin County Sheriff's Office.
Civilian Oversight Commission over the Marin County Sheriff's Office.
Or the MCSO.
Okay, so are you making a
Yes,
motion?
that'd be my motion to take a vote on whether we should change the name to that.
and I second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? That was 2 opposed and 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
5, 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. We pushed it. Okay.
So I get, so then the motion to change the name to Civilian Oversight Commission over the Marin County Sheriff's Office carries. And I guess what are the next steps for that then?
The next steps, Vice Chair, would be that staff will bring you in a draft ordinance for your review at the next commission meeting.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. That is all we have on the agenda tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, the meeting, okay, do we have to vote? We have to vote on that? Okay, the meeting's adjourned.